I never thought I'd be writing something like this, but here I am, and honestly I feel like I've been hit by a truck. My name's Mike and I'd like to share what happened, maybe for some advice, maybe just to get it off my chest. My wife Lisa and I had been together for over 10 years. To most people we looked perfect. We had the house, the jobs, the vacations, the everything. But behind closed doors, things weren't quite as smooth as they seemed. At first it was small stuff. Little things that I brushed off, missing meals, late nights with work, her phone constantly in her hand even when she was supposed to be sleeping. I'd ask her about it and she'd roll her eyes, call me paranoid or accuse me of being jealous. It was classic. I knew she was a little bitchy, quick to lie and dismiss my concerns, but I trusted her, or so I thought. Then came the first real sign that put a crack in the facade. I started noticing she was acting weird around her phone. She'd hide it when I walked into the room, or she'd get defensive if I even looked at her screen. I didn't press her much, believed in giving her space, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I'd catch her lying about small things like where she was going or who she was talking to. Nothing concrete, just this gut feeling that she was hiding something. The real shocker hit me about 2 months ago. I've been feeling worse than usual, diagnosed with a terminal illness, a rare and aggressive form of cancer. The doctors told me I didn't have long, maybe a year, tops. It's a lot to process. I leaned on Lisa, of course. I told her everything, kept her close, tried to make the most of the time we had left. And that's when I noticed she was acting even more distant. She'd go out late, say she was meeting a friend, but I'd find her phone records and they didn't match her words. I saw texts sent at odd hours, messages to some guy I'd never heard of talking about the next time and keeping it a secret. One night, I decided to check her phone when she wasn't home. I don't know what I was expecting. Maybe a confession, but what I found was worse. She was cheating on me. With the clinical trial coordinator at the hospital, a guy named Neil. I found texts, emails, even photos. They'd been hooking up for weeks, probably longer. She lied through her teeth every time I confronted her about her late nights and her bullshit stories about checking on me at the hospital. It was like a punch to the gut. The thing that hurts the most isn't just the cheating. It's the fact that while I was fighting for my life, she was out screwing around behind my back. And the worst part, she seemed to think she could just get away with it, brushing it off like it was no big deal. I was sick, vulnerable, and she used that to her advantage. I still can't believe I was that blind. I never thought Lisa would cheat on me, especially not with some guy whose job was to test experimental treatments that I was participating in, treatments that could extend my life, or so I thought. Turns out her affair was more important to her than my survival. When I confronted her, she looked at me like I was crazy, like I was the one making shit up. "You're being paranoid," she snapped. "Neil and I are just friends, you're imagining things. You're so damn selfish, always making everything about you." That was her go-to excuse, always turning it around to make me out to be the bad guy. She said I was overreacting, that I was jealous, that she'd never cheat on me. But I knew the truth. I saw the messages, the pictures, her secret meetings, her lying about where she was. That's when I realized she didn't care about me, not really. She was more interested in Neil and whatever was happening between them. It was like I was just collateral damage in her game. I felt betrayed, angry, and helpless all at once. I wanted to scream, to break something, but I held back. Instead, I just looked at her and said, "You're done. I want a divorce." Her eyes flared with anger, but she didn't deny it. She just sneered and said, "You're making a big deal out of nothing. You're crazy. I don't have time for this." That moment, I realized I'd lost the person I trusted most in the world. It's a terrible feeling, to be betrayed not just by someone you love, but during the worst time of your life. I thought I was fighting to stay alive, and she was fighting to stay with Neil. That's the kind of punch that can break a man for good. I never thought I'd ever get to this point, but I knew I had to do something. I couldn't let her ruin what little life I had left with her lies and her infidelity. So I started planning my revenge. Not in some childish way, no, I wanted her to feel what I felt, to see her realize that she lost everything. I'm not proud of it, but I'm not going to sit quietly and let her get away with this. I want her to understand the pain she caused. But first, I need to get my head straight, because I've just been punched in the gut and I'm trying to figure out how to breathe again. After I found out about Neil, everything changed. I couldn't focus on my treatment, my upcoming surgery, or the fact that I might not be around much longer. All I could think about was her betrayal. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her with him, her lips on his neck, her hand on his chest, the way she'd lied so effortlessly. I felt like I was losing my mind, but at the same time, I knew I had to do something. I couldn't just let her walk all over me. Not after everything. I started to dig deeper. I knew her phone had been the key, so I installed a tracking app on it when she wasn't looking. Not proud of that, hell, I hate spying on her, but I was desperate. I wanted to know how deep this really went, how long they'd been at it. I kept an eye on her movements, her messages, her calls. It was brutal watching her lie, act innocent, and then sneak around behind my back. Every new message, every secret rendezvous, it felt like a punch to my gut. But I needed to see it all to understand what I was dealing with. One night, I followed her to a dingy hotel near the hospital. I didn't want to believe she'd be that reckless, but there she was, walking in with Neil holding hands like some teenagers. I watched from a distance, feeling like I was about to vomit. The sight of them together, so blatantly betraying me, made me realize she didn't care about what I was going through. She was so consumed with her affair she forgot I was dying. It made my blood boil, but also strangely gave me clarity. If she could do this to me at my worst, I deserved more. I deserved to make her feel the pain she caused me. I decided to set a trap. Not a crazy one, just enough to make her realize I was onto her. I started collecting evidence, screenshots of their messages, recordings of her calls, even some photos I managed to sneak with my phone when she wasn't paying attention. I wanted her to see that I knew everything. I wanted her to understand that I wasn't going to be a pushover anymore. One day, I confronted her again, this time with everything laid out on the table. I told her I knew about Neil, about her lies, about her sneaking around when she was supposed to be caring for me. She looked stunned at first, then furious. She snapped at me, called me paranoid, accused me of just projecting my fears onto her. Typical. You're crazy, she spat. Neil and I are just friends, it's not what you think. She denied everything, but I had the proof. She was caught red-handed. That's when I made my decision. I told her I wanted a divorce. She yelled, cussed, called me all sorts of names, but I stayed calm. I told her she was a selfish bitch and that I wasn't going to let her ruin whatever time I had left. I'd seen enough, her true colors. She didn't love me, she loved Neil, and I was tired of pretending everything was okay. While all this was happening, I was still battling my illness. The doctors kept telling me I didn't have much time, and every day it felt like I was losing a little more of myself. The betrayal made it worse. It's like I was fighting a war on two fronts, my terminal diagnosis and her betrayal. That combination is a hell I wouldn't wish on anyone. I'd always thought I was a strong guy, but it broke me in ways I didn't even understand at the time. I started to plan my revenge. Not some childish revenge, but something that would make her see what she lost. I wanted her to feel the pain, the regret, the guilt. I knew I'd probably never see her again after this, but I needed to do something to make her understand that her actions had consequences. I wanted her to realize that she threw everything away, her marriage, her integrity, her conscience, for some meaningless sex with a guy whose job is to test experimental drugs. It made me sick thinking about it. The thing is, I wasn't going to tell her I was planning anything. I was just going to let her see that I knew, that I was still in control even as I was dying inside. I started subtly dropping hints, making her question whether I was catching on. I knew she'd be furious, maybe even try to cover her tracks more carefully, but I didn't care. I wanted her to feel hunted, to feel the fear of losing everything, just as I was losing my health and my dignity. Honestly, I don't know what I expected to happen next. Maybe I thought she'd feel guilty and come clean. Maybe. I thought she'd run back to me begging for forgiveness, but that's not what I got. She doubled down. She started threatening me, calling me crazy, saying I was making shit up. She started acting even more bitchy, more dismissive. It was like she was trying to gaslight me, make me doubt what I knew was true, but I didn't back down. I was done playing nice. I wanted her to see that I wasn't the idiot she thought I was. Now I'm left with this mess. My health deteriorating, my trust shattered, and her out there, probably still lying and sneaking around. I know I have to decide what's next, whether to fight for the marriage or cut her out entirely. Honestly, it's so hard to think straight anymore. Part of me wants her to pay for what she did, to suffer the way I did when I found out. But another part just feels numb, like I've already lost everything that mattered. I guess I just wanted to share this because it's been eating me up inside. If anyone else finds themselves in a situation like this, dealing with betrayal, especially during the worst moment of their life, I want them to know they're not alone. It's brutal, it's unfair. But somehow you have to keep going, even if it's just for yourself. After I laid everything out, proof of her affair, the secret meetings, the lies, her reaction was predictable. She went ballistic, screaming, cursing, calling me crazy and paranoid. She threw everything she could find, her phone, a pillow, even a glass of water at me, trying to make me doubt what I saw. But I stayed calm. Inside, though, I felt like my world was crumbling. I told her I was done, that I couldn't keep pretending anymore, that her betrayal had broken whatever little trust we had left. She clung to her usual manipulative bullshit, swearing she was innocent, that Neil was just a friend, and that I was blowing things out of proportion. It was the same old lie, just spun differently. Honestly, I wanted to slap her, but I didn't. Instead, I told her I wanted a divorce and that I'd be taking everything. She looked at me like I'd lost my mind, but I didn't care. The truth was out now, and I wasn't going to pretend anymore. That night I couldn't sleep. My mind was racing, trying to process what I'd discovered. The betrayal, the lies, the fact that she was cheating on me during my fight with this deadly disease. How could she be so selfish, so manipulative? I felt this mix of anger, sadness, and disappointment that I didn't even know what to do with. I kept thinking about her bitchy attitude, her lies, her sneering when she told me I was overreacting. It was like she enjoyed making me feel small, like I was nothing. But I wasn't going to let her see me break. The next few days were worse. I kept retracing everything in my head, trying to find a way to make her pay. I started to think about what kind of revenge could really hit her where it hurts. Not just exposing her, but making her feel the loss, like I was feeling now. She thought she was untouchable, that her lies could just keep going forever. But I knew better. I was going to make her regret everything. I decided to dig even deeper, find out who else she'd been talking to, maybe even get her phone records or access her email again. While I was doing all this, I also had to face my treatments. The doctors kept telling me I didn't have much time. My body was shutting down, and sometimes I'd wake up gasping for air, feeling like I was losing the battle. It's a helpless feeling, knowing you're dying and your own wife is out there cheating on you. Honestly, it made me question everything. My life, my choices, her love, or whatever it was. Did she ever love me? Or was I just the guy she married because she was bored or stuck in a rut? Those questions haunted me. But I had to be smart. I knew if I let her see I was onto her, she'd cover her tracks better. So I started paying more attention to her routines, her calls, her messages. I kept my cool, even when I saw her with Neil at the hotel again, her hand on his chest, her lips pressed close to his ear. That image burned into my mind. It made me realize I couldn't stay silent anymore. I had to do something, even if it meant risking everything I had left. One evening I set up a small camera in our bedroom, not to spy on her just for the hell of it, but to gather conclusive proof. I knew she'd be furious if she found out, but I didn't care. I wanted her to see that I was finally serious. When I played back the footage, it was like a punch to the stomach. Her sneaking out, sneaking in, Neil's hand on her leg, her leaning into him. It was all there. No denying it now. The worst part was seeing her break down a little when she thought no one was looking. She was angry, frustrated, and desperate. She knew I was onto her, and I could see the panic in her eyes. That gave me some satisfaction. I didn't want her to think she could keep playing me for a fool. I wanted her to realize I wasn't the naive husband she once thought I was. I was a man dying inside, but still capable of making her suffer. That was my goal now, to turn her own betrayal against her. I sat her down the next morning, the evidence in my hand. Her face turned white, her lips trembling. That's when she finally cracked a little, trying to deny everything again. It's not what it looks like, she said, her voice trembling. Neil and I are just friends, you're overreacting. This isn't about you, it's about us. That's the thing with her, she always told lies, spun stories, and expected me to believe them. But I didn't. I could see through her bullshit. I told her I knew she'd been lying all along, that her friendship was just an excuse to cheat. She tried to play victim, saying I was just jealous, that I was sick and paranoid. But I was. I was just tired, tired of her lies, tired of her betrayal, tired of feeling like I was fighting for my life while she was out screwing around. I told her she needed to pack her bags and get out, that I didn't want to see her face anymore, not after everything she'd done. I told her she'd better realize what she was losing: me, my respect, and any chance at a decent life together. Honestly, I thought I'd feel relief, maybe even happiness, but instead I just felt empty. The pain of betrayal is one thing, but the realization that someone you loved so much could do this to you during your final days, it's a kind of heartbreak I can't describe. I looked at her, the woman I had trusted for so long, and saw nothing but a stranger. The woman who used to be kind, caring, maybe a little bitchy, was gone. Replaced by someone who only cared about Neil, her sex, and whatever thrill she got from sneaking around. Now I stand here trying to figure out what comes next. Do I fight to save what's left of us? Or do I let her go knowing she's already gone? Part of me still hopes she'll come back, maybe because I want to believe there's some part of her that regrets what she did. But deep down, I know she's gone. She's chosen Neil over me, over my health, over everything. And honestly, that realization hurts more than I can put into words. The days following the confrontation felt like I was walking through a fog. Part of me, the rational part, knew what I had to do: cut her out, focus on myself and my health. But another part, the raw, aching part, kept begging for answers, for a reason why she would do this to me at my worst. I kept replaying everything in my head: her sneaking around, her dismissive attitude, the way she lied with such ease. It was like she was a different person, and I was left with this hollow shell of the woman I once loved. I couldn't ignore the fact that she was still living under my roof, still pretending to be the wife I thought I knew. Every morning, I woke up feeling this mixture of anger and despair. I wanted her out, but I also knew I didn't have the strength to fight her. Not physically, my body was already giving up, but mentally, emotionally, I was drained. Still, I knew I had to be strategic. I didn't want her to walk away thinking she'd won. I decided that my next move would be to make her realize that her actions had consequences, whether she liked it or not. I started planning how I could make her regret what she'd done. I didn't want her to just walk away, free and unscathed. I wanted her to see the fallout of her betrayal. It had to be something that hit her where it hurt, the truth she refused to accept. I knew she'd try to spin it, deny everything, accuse me of being crazy. That's her go-to. But I had the evidence now, and I was going to use it. One thing I did was reach out to Neil. I knew that was risky, but I wanted him to understand what he was doing. I secretly messaged him, telling him I knew about their arrangement and that I had proof of everything. I also warned him that if he kept messing around, I'd make sure everyone knew: the hospital, the police, anyone who cared. I wanted him to feel the pressure, to realize he was messing with a dying man's wife. I didn't expect him to back off immediately, but I hoped he'd think twice. Meanwhile, Lisa kept up her act, trying to act innocent, calling me paranoid, saying she didn't know what I was talking about. She even had the nerve to accuse me of making this up because I was sick and scared. I could see right through her lies, but I kept quiet. Inside, I was seething. I was dying, yes, but I still had some fight left. I wanted her to see that I wasn't broken yet, that her betrayal had consequences. One evening, I decided to confront her directly with everything I knew. I told her I had the recordings, the screenshots, the proof of her meetings with Neil. Her face turned ghostly white, and for a second I thought she might crack. But then she snapped back, trying her usual manipulative routine. "You're insane," she spat. "You're just imagining things. Neil and I are just friends. You're sick and you're desperate." That's her favorite: deny, deny, deny. But I knew the truth was right in front of her. I told her it was over, that I was done pretending she was innocent. That night I made a decision. I was going to leave her, not just physically but emotionally. I packed a bag, left it in the car, and told her I was going to stay at a friend's place for a while. I needed space, clarity. I knew I couldn't stay under the same roof anymore. The betrayal was too fresh, too raw. I didn't want to see her, hear her lies, or feel her contempt anymore. I wanted to be somewhere I could breathe, somewhere I could think. But even as I planned to leave, I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal, the pain of realizing my wife loved Neil more than she loved me. During my fight with the illness, I'd thought she'd be by my side. Instead, she was out with her new lover, testing some experimental treatment that was supposed to save my life. I kept asking myself, was I just a project to her, someone to be used and discarded when it suited her? That thought haunted me, but I also knew I had to protect myself. I'd already lost so much: my health, my dignity, my trust. I couldn't let her take anything else from me. I had to be strong, even if I was barely hanging on physically. I started documenting everything: her lies, her meetings, her texts. I wanted to leave her with proof that she was the one who threw everything away. If I couldn't have her love, I'd make sure she'd never forget what she lost. One thing I kept coming back to was the cruel irony of it all. Here I was fighting for my life, and she was out there, probably fucking Neil, while I was doing everything I could just to stay alive. The thought made me bitter. I wondered if she even cared that I was dying, or if I was just some inconvenience that she wanted to get rid of. That realization made me feel emptier than ever. It was like I was already mourning the loss of her, even before I left. Now the question was, how do I move on from here? Do I just walk away and wipe my hands of her? Do I confront her one last time and tell her exactly what I think? Or do I stay silent and let her think she got away with everything? Honestly, I don't have the answers right now. All I know is that I can't let her control me anymore. Not physically, not emotionally. My time may be limited, but I still have enough strength to take back some semblance of power, if only for a little while longer. It's been a roller coaster since I decided to leave her. I packed my bags late at night, took what little dignity I had left, and moved out, not telling her exactly where I was going. I just told her I needed space, needed to get some clarity before making any final decisions. Inside, I was burning with rage, heartbreak, and a strange sense of relief that I was finally doing something about it. But that relief was short-lived, because every time I closed my eyes, I saw her with Neil, her lips on him, her hands in places they shouldn't be. It's a vivid, relentless image that haunts me even now. I knew I had to be smart about what I did next. I couldn't just confront her again blindly. I needed to make her realize that I wasn't going to be her doormat anymore. I started slowly, gathering everything I could: screenshots of their messages, her hotel receipts, pictures from their secret meetings. I wanted her to understand that I knew everything, that I had proof, irrefutable evidence of her betrayal. I wasn't going to give her the chance to lie her way out of this again. I wanted her to see that I was serious, that I was done playing games. I reached out to Neil one last time, privately. I sent him a message that was cold and clear. I knew what he was doing, I had proof, and if he didn't back off, I'd make sure everyone knew. I told him I'd go to the hospital, the police, anyone who needed to know. I made it obvious I was watching, that I was done being manipulated. The message seemed to shake him up a little. At least, that's what I hoped. I wanted him to feel the pressure, to realize he was playing with fire. Meanwhile, Lisa kept spinning her lies. She tried to call me, text me, even show up at my new place, all fake apologies and blame shifting. She was saying I was crazy, that I was imagining things, that Neil wasn't anything more than a work friend. She'd pretend to be innocent, but I could see through it now. The cracks in her story kept widening. I knew she was desperate to cover her tracks, but I wasn't going to let her. I'd already made up my mind. One day, I set up a hidden recorder in my new place. I knew she'd come over to try to manipulate me again, probably with tears, apologies, or even some kind of guilt trip. I wanted to catch her in the act, to hear what she'd really say when she thought I wasn't listening. When I finally played back the recording, it was exactly what I expected. She was desperately trying to convince me she'd ended everything with Neil, that she loved me, that I was the only one for her. But her words sounded hollow, rehearsed. Her voice betrayed her, revealing her true feelings. That moment, I knew I had what I needed, enough to finally end this nightmare. I decided to go full force. I contacted a lawyer, started divorce proceedings, and told her I'd be exposing everything if she didn't leave me alone. I wanted her to understand that her lies had consequences, her cheating, her manipulations, her betrayal, all of it. I didn't care if she hated me for it. I just wanted her to feel the weight of what she'd done. I also reached out to a few close friends, people I trusted, and told them the truth. I knew I'd need support, especially as my health continued to decline. They listened, maybe a little shocked, but supportive. I realized I didn't have to go through this alone. Even in my darkest moments, I had people who cared. That realization was a small comfort amid the chaos. Sometimes I wonder if I did the right thing, if walking away, if exposing her will bring me peace. Just more pain. I still feel angry, betrayed, and deeply sad. My body is weakening and my time is running out, but I refuse to let her control my final days. I want her to know that I fought for myself, that I fought for dignity, even if I was dying inside. I want her to remember that I was the man who loved her, who tried to make this work, but she threw it all away for Neil and some meaningless sex. Looking back, I realize I was more than just a victim of her lies. I was also a man who refused to be walked over. I might be dying, but I'm still standing. I've made my decision and I'm going to see it through. Whatever happens next, I'll know I did everything I could. And that, to me, is what matters now. I hope someday she'll realize what she lost, but at this point, I don't even care. I just want peace. The days blurred together after I finalized the divorce papers. I stayed mostly alone, not out of spite, but because I needed the silence to heal, to process what had happened. The betrayal had shattered me in ways I couldn't fully articulate. My body was weakening, my mind exhausted. But deep inside, I felt a strange sense of relief. I'd taken control back, even if just in small steps. The truth was out, and I'd made sure she knew I wasn't going to let her manipulate or deceive me anymore. I spent a lot of time thinking about everything, how I let her into my life, how I trusted her, and how badly that trust had been broken. I kept replaying the moments I caught her lying, the nights she met Neil, the false smiles she wore when she came back home pretending nothing had changed. It all felt like a dark, cruel joke. The woman I loved had turned into someone I barely recognized, someone capable of lying during my final days. Knowing that, I couldn't bring myself to feel anger anymore, just a deep, aching sadness. I mourned not just the relationship, but the future I once imagined. In those quiet moments, I'd sometimes wonder what she was doing now. Did she realize what she'd lost? Did she regret her choices? Or was she already moving on with Neil, as if I'd never been part of her life? Honestly, I didn't care anymore. I'd done everything I could to protect myself and my dignity. There was a strange sense of peace in accepting the end, even if it was a peace made of pain and regret. Throughout it all, I learned something vital. I learned that life is fragile and fleeting, and that betrayal cuts deeper than any illness. I also learned that even when you're at your weakest, you still have the strength to stand up for yourself. I never wanted to be a victim, and I refused to be. I fought for my dignity, for the truth, even if it meant losing everything. That's what true strength looks like in the face of heartbreak. As I sit here reflecting on everything, I realize that I've come to accept the reality that some things can't be fixed. Love, trust, once broken, they're almost impossible to heal. But I can heal myself. I can find peace in knowing I fought until my last breath. I hope that somehow she'll remember the man I was, someone who loved her deeply, who fought for his life, and who refused to be crushed by betrayal. In the end, I've learned to forgive myself for trusting her, even if she threw that trust away. Forgiveness isn't about her. It's about freeing myself from the burden of hatred and pain. I want her to know that I won't carry this anger forever. Maybe someday I'll find some sense of peace, some way to forgive her, though that's not for her to decide anymore. It's for me. So I say this not to seek pity or sympathy, but to remind anyone who might be reading this: betrayal hurts, but it doesn't define you. You can choose to stand up, to fight back, and to find peace in the aftermath. Because in the end, what matters most is how you handle the pain, how you move forward, even when everything seems lost. I may be dying, but I'm still here, still fighting for my dignity. And that, I know, is a victory, no matter what anyone else says.